When Showtime's original drama Shameless aired its final episode in April of 2021, it drew the curtain on 11 seasons of cons, scams, and dramatic misadventures.
I want you to remember this moment.
For 134 episodes, Frank Gallagher, his kids, and their extended family tore up Chicago's South Side. But in a show that was often about how hard it can be to deal with your issues, just how much personal growth did the Gallagher clan pull off?
I'm not a kid.
Yes, you are.
Let's take a look at how a few Shameless characters changed from the first episode to the last. One of Shameless's most important characters is also the one who seems the most reluctant to change. As the patriarch of the Gallagher family, Frank, played by William H. Macy, is introduced in the pilot episode as an unrepentant, emotionally volatile grifter. Raised as the child of abuse, Frank often proves himself to be deeply intelligent and capable of real charisma, but he is more than happy to live a chemically altered life on the fringes, drinking, scamming, and drifting in and out of the lives of his children like an alcoholic outdoor cat. While he may sow chaos wherever he goes, Frank still shows off frustrating glimmers of change and improvement, and for a while even seems determined to give his youngest son, Liam, more opportunity and stability than most of the Gallaghers enjoy. No matter what, it is Frank's unwillingness to change that causes the biggest shifts in his life, as he damages his relationships with his children again and again, and his drinking and drug use break him down in body and mind. Finally, racked by alcohol-induced dementia and burning through his second liver, Frank attempts to kill himself in the lead-up to the series finale before eventually succumbing to COVID. In the final moments of the show, Frank looks down on his many children and grandchildren and who they have become, and his alcohol-soaked body promptly blows the doors off the crematorium. Next up, Liam. Played mostly by Brendan Sims and Christian Isaiah, Liam is the youngest of the Gallagher children and is barely a toddler when the show begins. As a result, we get to watch him grow up over the course of the show, transforming from a baby who Frank once lost in a bet into a teenager. Liam's perception of himself is frequently challenged, and he finds himself being used as a token diversity student by the expensive private school that Frank sends him to, which takes him down the long road of trying to understand what it means to be a young black man in America. This leads to a growing frustration over the way that his family does not seem to see or acknowledge him, and drives him to making up a list of demands that he thinks will help rectify this. Even though his father's behavior eventually loses him his place at school and lands him back in public education, Liam seems to be the most determined to have a normal relationship with Frank, and he closes out the series as a capable, intelligent young man who has serious concerns about his place in the world. While next-door neighbors Veronica Fisher and Kevin Ball, played by Shanola Hampton and Steve Howie, may not be official Gallaghers, they are certainly part of the family. From V working odd jobs and partying with Fiona to Kev serving Frank drinks at the Alibi Room, their know-how and love for the family makes them a regular presence in the Gallagher home. Over the years, their relationship had its ups and downs, but the two are well suited to each other and got married a couple of times to raise kids of their own. While they eventually settle mostly into running the bar, V grows more politically active as she attempts to stop the gentrification of the neighborhood, but discovers there is little she can do. In the end, they decide to sell out of their share of the Alibi Room and move to Kentucky to stay close with V's family. As the second child and oldest son, Philip, often just called Lip and played by Jeremy Allen White, starts Shameless in the unique position of holding some power in the household, but little of the responsibility. He still works to bring in extra cash to help keep the family afloat, but with Fiona stuck in the role of designated adult, Lip has more time and space to be his own person. A gifted science student, he works a regular scam, taking the SATs for other students, and is offered work in a robotics laboratory, and is eventually accepted into MIT. While Lip chooses to stay closer to home, he still goes on to college at Chicago Polytechnic, but he is sabotaged at every turn by his drinking and poor decision-making. As he grows increasingly like his father, Lip's life spirals out of control as he gets arrested, loses his job and place at school, and drifts in and out of sobriety. Still, despite a few more false starts at different companies, he begins to straighten himself out in the last few seasons, regularly attending AA, family, working and raising his son Freddie alongside his partner Tammy. By finale time, Lip has gained a certain level of stability and authority, even deciding to sell the family home after Frank's death and possibly expecting a second child. However, it remains unclear if Lip will ever truly be capable of getting out of his own way and building the life that he and his family deserve. The second youngest Gallagher's son, Carl, played by Ethan Kukovsky, is considered too young in the first season to earn money for the family and spends most of his time parked in front of the TV or melting action figures and toasters. At such a young age, he is still dedicated to Frank, even though his dad convinces him that he has cancer to run a scam, and eventually turns to crime while trying to secure a replacement liver for the old man. Graduating from gangs and drug dealing to a stint in juvie and selling guns, it seems like Carl is bound for a life of crime until the murder of a child by his friend Nick shocks him out of it and sends him straight into military school in season 7. Despite a rocky start and his failing to get into West Point like he had hoped, Carl mostly manages to stay on the right side of the law and eventually joins the police force. While he never quite leaves the Gallaghers' ways behind and policing is far from what he hoped that it would be, by the series finale, Carl still seems poised to make the most of himself and try to do right by his neighborhood. When we meet Ian in season 1, he seems mostly content to be an anonymous middle child, following along with his older brother Lip and hiding the fact that he is gay from his family and friends. As he starts to come out of the closet and grow more confident, he embarks on a roller coaster of chaotic romantic relationships and becomes frequently erratic due to untreated bipolar disorder, inherited from his mother, Monica. This leads him further and further off the rails as he steals Lip's identity to join the military and almost immediately deserts. Chasing something that he seems unable to understand himself, Ian finds himself in the role of Gay Jesus, serving as the religious leader of a group of homeless LGBTQ+ youths and going to war with a local conversion therapy group. As his mental state continues to crumble, he escalates, blowing up a van and eventually landing in prison. Played with emotion and care by Cameron Monaghan, Ian eventually manages to get his life under control long enough to marry his on-again, off-again boyfriend and partner in crime, Mickey Milkovich, in the season 10 finale, and the two decide to leave the South Side together to try and build a better life in a different part of the city. The youngest Gallagher girl, Debbie, played by Emma Kinney, is introduced as a sweet, clever kid who is devoted to her family and is always working hard to find little ways to make money and cut costs. One of the few Gallaghers left who has any real fondness for Frank, she struggles with the lack of positive, functional adults in her life and seems desperate for affection. As she grows up and struggles with her own identity and role in the family, Debbie tries repeatedly to force her world and life into a shape that she thinks will make her happier, often to disastrous results. From intentionally getting pregnant at a young age to a sexual assault charge and mismanaging the family's finances to keep herself happy, Debbie struggles with her own self-destructive tendencies as much as any Gallagher, even though she discovers and comes to terms with her sexuality and becomes a professional welder at the cost of a few toes. By the series finale, it is unclear whether Debbie can do the work and be a better mother to her daughter, Franny, or if she will run off to Texas with her dangerous new love interest, Heidi. All of the Gallaghers struggled with poverty and addictions during Shameless's run, but it is perhaps Fiona, played by Emmy Rossum, who worked the hardest to remove herself from the cycles established by her father. As the oldest of the kids, Fiona spends many of the show's early seasons in the role of designated adult and even goes so far as to get custody of her siblings from Frank. Trapped between her duties raising her siblings and her own needs and desires, Fiona struggles with substance abuse and frequently jumps in and out of relationships with abandon. While she certainly has her fair share of romantic ups and downs and eventually starts attending AA meetings with Lip, Fiona strives to build some order out of the chaos of her life and proves herself to be a capable businesswoman, coming up from a waitress to manage and revitalize the diner before flipping a local laundromat and investing and renovating a neighborhood apartment building. Eventually, with her brother Ian's encouragement, she decides to break free of her family's orbit and start her life over in the world beyond Chicago at the end of season 9. Sadly, we may never learn what Fiona has made of herself, as the COVID-19 pandemic stopped Emmy Rossum from being able to participate in the production of the final season. Now, we've barely scratched the surface of the Gallagher family and the rest of their friends and neighbors, but a decade is clearly plenty of time to grow, change, and fall back into old ways. Shameless may be over, but it remains a heartbreaking and occasionally hilarious look at poverty, addiction, and life on the edge. Thanks for watching.